Welcome to week one, and week one is so important because we're setting the table for the next 8 weeks. Now, along this journey, along these 8 weeks, we're gonna give you action items, we're gonna give you mindsets, we're gonna teach you what you need to know, but it's about practice, it's about making mistakes, it's about finding where you're having some difficulties, and we're here to guide you. So week one, Dad, is about creating a mindset, and that mindset is you have the power to take back control of your health. So what's the big mindset that we want to share in week one?
Well, I think the big mindset is that so many people that we've come in contact with over the years don't truly believe that it's reversible. So if I have type 2 diabetes, is it reversible? So we're going to talk about preventing it, but also that it's reversible. And so that's the first mindset. You have to, that your body has an amazing ability to self-correct and heal. And a big part of that is believing that the body will do what's necessary to help you with this disease.
Yeah, and so one of the big myths that we see is that type 2 diabetes, or at one point it was called adult onset diabetes, which we don't call that anymore because children have type 2 diabetes. So we hear about carbohydrates, sugar. Let's start with this mindset of this is a disease of our cells, not a disease of carbohydrates. What does that mean?
Well, again, when you eat food, the first thing the body does, it breaks it down into glucose, and so glucose is going to enter the cell to feed the cell. So that's how the body absorbs nutrients. It has to be converted in glucose. So make it really simple. So when people think of, I'm gonna eat a carbohydrate, which is gonna raise glucose levels up, that's the way to prevent type 2 diabetes. I just quit eating fruit. In reality, that's not the problem. But as the cell, the problem when we talk about the cell gets too stiff and rigid, and it makes it very difficult for glucose to enter the cell. So insulin, again, I don't make this so confusing, but insulin is the hormone that opens up the cell. It's like a clam, it opens it up, and then glucose goes in the cell. What type 2 diabetes is, the clam is not opening up or the door is not opening up, and it doesn't allow glucose to get into the cell, hence glucose gets in the bloodstream and elevates up. And so that's why we talk about type 2 diabetes. It's not a carbohydrate disease. We don't get type 2 diabetes from eating too many bananas or an apple. We get it because the cell becomes too stiff and rigid, it gets gummed up, and it doesn't allow insulin to open up the cell and to be fed.
And this is great news because we can control the health of our cells, right?
Absolutely. So once you, again, that's what we're talking about. The mindset at the beginning is you have to understand it's disease of the cell, and as the cell gets healthier, then glucose gets back into normal. And that's why we have seen many people in our practice over the years, that's why we're doing this course, that people can actually reverse it. So again, that's the challenge, is helping people understand it's a disease of the cell, it's not a disease of carbohydrates.
And don't get us wrong, we're gonna talk about there's some bad carbohydrates, there's some villains out there, but really we gotta start with this mindset. It's a disease of the cell, so we're gonna help make your cells healthy, and that's gonna be the first step in this week one. So let's talk about what they need to know and what you need to learn. And there's two things we thought were important in week one. Number one is, you kind of talked about what is type 2 diabetes, but maybe just give a really clean definition of what is type 2 diabetes.
Well, I think initially when you think of diabetes itself, type 1 is, again, when most people think of type 1, it's, well, you're born with it. But we're also seeing increases in type 1 diabetes because the immune system's not so healthy. And that means your body doesn't produce insulin. Again, insulin is that hormone that opens up the cell. 95% of diabetics, about 5 to 10% of diabetics are type 1, and about 90 to 95 diabetics are type 2.
And so, hopefully that's why we're doing this course. We don't want to get to a point where 95% of our population
well, it's trending in
the wrong direction.
Yeah. So again, that's the big issue, is understanding between type 1 and type 2 diabetes. And type 2 diabetes, what you're looking for is you want to get your glucose checked. So it's a typical blood test, and that number ideally needs to be 100 or less, but what we like to say 95 or less, because if it's trending closer to 100, we're talking about pre-diabetes, and then you're getting in full-blown diabetes. And then the other number you want to know is your A1C, and that's looking at your glucose level over a period of time, anywhere between a 6 and 12 week period of time. So glucose looks at your diabetes basically over a day, and then and A1C looks at your glucose level over a period of time.
So what we need you to know and learn in week one is, number one, what is type 2 diabetes? It's a disease of the cell, and it's when your glucose is getting out of balance. Here's a couple of the numbers. Number two of what we need you to know and learn is that you need to know your glucose. Ideally, this needs to be under 100. If it's not, and it's not, because that's why you're interested in this. And then we want to get your A1C checked, and that number needs to be under 6, ideally under 5.7. We're going to talk more about this as we go, but we really want to give you some actions in week 1. So what do you need to do? What are you going to actually come away from this video and do? And so we got 3 action items for him, Dad. Let's talk about the 3 action items.
Well, I think the big action item right away is, and again, getting the mindset, you got to start doing stuff. And so if you make it very difficult for people, it's too difficult. So we really want to build each week to build up some baby steps that you can repeat over and over and over, and we'll keep coming back to it. But the big one initially is you got to drink enough water. Because if the body is dehydrated, your pH is turns more acid. We're going to get into that more and more. But that makes the cell, that's the beginning, am I drinking enough water? And ideally, that needs to be half your body weight in ounces. So if you're not even close to that, don't worry about it, but the goal is you start drinking more water. And one of the things I do on a daily basis, I get up first thing in the morning and I'm drinking 8 ounces of water. It's an easy habit to begin with. Your body's already dehydrated. Imagine your cells are like a sponge. They love that water. So that's a beginning step, is drinking water.
Number 2, omega-3 fats. What are some omega-3 fats and why are they so important?
Well, one of the things omega-3 fats do, they're called essential fatty acids. But cod liver oil, for example, cod liver oil is high in DHA and EPA, but it's a high level of omega-3 fat. It's also high in vitamin D3. But omega-3 fats make that cell soft and permeable. It's like lubricating that cell. So imagine if I'm drinking water and then I always start adding an omega-3 fat, like 1 to 2 tablespoons of the cod liver oil. It's an easy way to make that cell now soft and permeable. It's imagine your skin in the wintertime getting dry and cracked. That's what happens to your cell. Now you're putting this nice moisturizer on that cell, and now it allows that cell to be more easily opened up, and that's the key of the omega-3 fats.
And it's so hard to get these omega-3s in our food system. 95% of our society, not just diabetics, are deficient in omega-3s. So that's a critical step.
And the other thing too is, flax seeds, chia seeds, walnuts, these are all forms of omega-3 fats. So again, on top of the cod liver oil, you bring the omega-3 fats to the party, the cells start to get soft and permeable, and now you're heading in a great direction.
And the last one is creating activity, movement, exercise, and we know everyone's in a different spot. And so what do you want them to take away from activity?
Well, again, we've talked about this disease of the cell. The goal is you want to make that cell soft and permeable, but also you want to make it more sensitive. And so when you move your body on a regular basis, it makes that cell more sensitive. As simple as going for a walk for 10 minutes. This is what the magic of the human body. You add the water, you add the omega-3s, and then you add the little bit of movement on a regular basis. Now everything starts to change and that cell slowly is doing its job.
So in week 1, really, the key that we want you to kind of take away, the mindset is this is a disease of the cell. This isn't a disease of carbohydrates and sugars. And once we change that mindset, now we're going to attack action items of making that cell healthy. So join us next week. We're here to guide you. We're here to help you. And we'll see you again in week 2.